Greetings from Berlin, Germany, and welcome to 30 Minutes Promoting Unity and Diversity with Wanayran Alvarez in Moving Cultures. Our guest, number 107, is Ann McCreath from Kenya.
I'm 107, I love that.
Ann, how are you?
I'm great. All the better for being here. Thank you for having me.
And also very happy that you are here to talk about your journey, your life, your aspirations, and what are you expecting to gain for in the future. So who is Ann McCreath?
That's always a difficult one to answer, I'm sure, for everybody, but I grew up on a farm in Scotland, and so I was very connected to the land. And I've lived in Kenya since '92, and having had some time out in UK last year in Scotland, I think I can say I'm very much closer to African culture, Kenyan culture, because I find like there was now a disconnect, because I think I've lived away from my country of birth for so long. But I'm a very creative person. I think I'm very dynamic. I kind of like doing things. If I have an idea, I like to make them happen, and I like to bring people around and involve them in the idea. So yeah, basically, I think that's me.
And you were talking about your origins and about Scotland. Let's talk about your parents, your ancestors, and how do they influence the person you are today?
So I've got a mix. My mum was born in South Africa and then moved to the UK with the rest of her family when she was in her 30s. That was 1958, I think, which was a very significant year in South African history. Anyway, so the family relocated, and 5 years later, she met my dad and got married. My dad grew up in a very traditional Scottish household. He was the only boy in a farming family. And so, yeah, grew up basically, I think, being able to do whatever he felt like, because that's what boys could do. And his sisters would be in the house cooking and entertaining whichever guests happened to show up. So I grew up on a Scottish farm, and very unusually with a South African mother. And I spent my childhood there till I think I was 11. I went to school in the city for a year. I hated it, went back home again. And then I asked to go away when I was 16. So I spent the last 2 years of my education in Edinburgh. Then went to uni in Edinburgh, and then had a year in France before that at uni, and then Edinburgh. And then, yeah, from there I went on to study fashion in Italy. So, but my ancestors definitely have a lot of Celtic in me. And on the other side also, because my mum's mum was also Scottish. So yeah, that's the answer. Okay.
Yeah, it is interesting to see how two strong tribal stories join, you know, and actually inspire your soul to become a creative persona. But you were working in development for a long time. Talk to us about that experience.
Yeah, there was both, because I was working first in fashion, and then I took a year out in development with MSF in MSF Spain and Angola. And then I went back into fashion in Europe, and then came to Kenya for 3 months. So 3 months doing aid work, which became 3 years, again with MSF Spain. And then, you know, I've been in and out of fashion and aid work. And interestingly, my worlds have now come together, because suddenly those that have the money for the aid work have realized that fashion is actually a very powerful tool for development. So because it attracts the young, the youth and women, and you know, people usually start up their own businesses and employ other people. So it's a real catalyst for development. So I was in public health before. I find that fascinating, but I'm very much enjoying using those that background I had, I guess, that understanding of maybe needs in rural areas as well as urban areas, and then marrying that with my fashion skills. So that's kind of the place I'm in now. Yeah.
Yeah, when you talk about the creative sector and the development sector marrying and actually become more efficient and effective, we also connect again with nature, because nature is an element of your life that has been present forever. You know, talking about Scotland, talking about South Africa, talking about Edinburgh, talking about Kenya, the colors and the sense of nature, that is not only the plants, we're talking about wildlife, we're talking about the sky, we're talking about so many elements. They are very present in your creation and also in your life. Talk to me about that sense and feeling of nature in you.
Yeah, I've always been very connected to nature. I get inspired by it. I know I want to live by the sea. I need to live by the sea again. Nairobi's become very urban. And when I came back from Scotland, having had those 7 months there again, and just that whole thing of needing to go for a walk on the beach, by the sea, amongst the trees, over the fields, it's something that I find I get energy from. And so now I find again that when I'm back in Kenya, I want to be out of the city. I want to be in nature. I've just come back from a sisal plantation. It was just beautiful and all the green around. I also had a trip to the ocean. For me, swimming in the ocean every day, salt water, the cleansing power of the salt, looking at the clouds while I'm in the sea, it just fires up my imagination. And I feel very much in tune with myself when I'm in that kind of big open space that nature provides. And then I'm also getting very much into medicinal plants. I'm quite interested in having my own garden to grow them. I'm very interested in alternative medicine and how that connects with nature. So yeah, I think that's very much a big part of me.
Yeah, it's a journey, because you coming from a very eclectic and very city-oriented mindset, because living in very established cities like Paris, Nairobi, you know, and we keep talking, you know, about big cities who actually nurture your process as a established and well-known designer and, you know, founder of KikoRomeo. Talk to me about that aspect of your life, who is now bringing Ann McCreath to the basics and to the connection with her inner self.
Yeah, I think for a time I needed the city, because I did grow up on a farm, and at a certain point you find, particularly as a young person, you just want a bit more like buzz around you. So I think for me, the city was very important in my development of my creative skills, and also just that kind of fun buzz party scene that seems to go very well in alongside creative work. And, you know, I love music, I love dance, I love all of that. But I've done it for a long time now, and the city I'm in has become more and more built up, so that the green spaces are fewer. You know, you have to travel further to find them. And I'm now tired of that. I'm tired of just concrete. I want to, you know, I want to be able to take a nice walk easily. And as I said to you, I need to be by the ocean. So I don't know if it's just cycle of life and you get to a certain age and you say, okay, I've had enough of this phase, I want the next phase. Or if it is that I feel in some ways I'm in transition. I think I really needed intense energy in the city being put into the fashion business, because I think that, you know, fashion, that's where you sell fashion in the city. But now I just want to do something else. I still want to create, I still want to do fashion, I still want to support my designer and my daughter in the fashion business. But I'm also enjoying teaching a lot. I'm enjoying teaching young fashion designers, and I'm teaching them online so I can be anywhere. And at that point, you're like, well, why am I sitting in the city doing that when I could actually be sitting in a place that, you know, has a lot more greenery around it, and above all, for me, the water. So I don't know. I don't know what's prompted that shift, but I just feel it's the right time. So I haven't fully moved to the coast yet, but I will be, because definitely that's who I am. That's what makes me happy. I think I vibrate on a higher frequency when I spend a lot of time in the sea and near the water. And then I realize when I come to the city with that energy, I get a lot of things done, and then I can disappear again and go back to the quieter life where I'm meeting different kinds of people, a lot of people into alternative medicine, which I find very interesting, as I've said. And then I think I just have more time to create, like I want to create art pieces. And I think while I'm in the city, I'm into just producing clothes, whereas actually I want to just have time to create whatever I feel like, whether it's going to sell as an item of clothing, or whether it's something you hang on the wall, or whether it's just something that I do for myself. I think I'm in that phase.
And it's fascinating, you know, because you have practically taken the time, as I said before, to really connect with your inner self. In the past,
I think my brothers helped me a lot. I didn't mention in Scotland, my brother's a healer. And when I was now 7 months in Scotland, he kind of like introduced me, but then he just said, you know, you've been a healer in another life. You already know how to do this. So we ended up doing a lot of healings together, just divine healing. And then I followed that path now, learning about pranic healing. And I still need to learn more, but that's something I'm now getting quite heavily involved in.
Wow, fantastic. And I think that's giving you a lot of peace.
Yeah, it does.
Mm-hmm.
I think as humans, we have many different facets, and things happen in different phases for a reason. And somebody might say, but why didn't you get into that sooner? Well, the time wasn't right. The time is right now. And I think with COVID, we all had to think a bit, or not even consciously think, although some people did consciously think, but you just somehow fell into a different pattern of doing things. And above all, you realize that you can actually stop and pick something up again later if you feel like it. You don't have to be on social media every single day posting. You can take a break. You can disappear for a while and then reappear. So I think, at least for me, that became extremely clear. And I think that was liberating. Mm-hmm. Although I would say that my generation is much less affected by that than, say, my daughter's generation. So, but for me, that was like, you know, I can be anywhere, I can do anything. I don't have to be tied down. Of course, you need the money to live, but you can simplify your life and not have to conform quite so much. And interestingly, some of the people that in business might have put pressure on me to do one thing or another were now people who needed help, companies that needed help. Like they'd been like the big boys pushing people around before, and all of a sudden they had to be a lot more humble and just kind of understand things from a different perspective. So it's been interesting in shaking up business relationships as well.
Mm-hmm. And you're definitely applying the law of the less effort that actually allow you to create more.
That's what I'm aiming for.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And we will be very happy to hear about your experiences working in Kakuma in this fashion and women empowerment project. How was for you to join this venture?
Okay, so Kakuma, the refugee camp, I wasn't specifically targeting women. There's another project I can tell you about that was about that. In Kakuma, it was refugees in general. It was a mixture of designers mainly from Congo, South Sudanese models, and a few others in between. And that was a thing of Ajuma, who is a fantastic role model. She was a very famous international model, and she now has a training program and does all sorts of stuff with her foundation. So she's the one that wrote me in, and I taught the designers. And then we put on a fashion show, and that was great fun. And I just found a huge talent and like just a need to be able to get their products out, and need to get known. And we've continued working on that. Some of the refugees, 2 of them came and did an internship with me in Nairobi for 3 weeks. And then I've managed to get some others onto mainstream training programs I do. And I found that very beneficial, because the general population, the general Kenyan designers who were on the course now got to meet refugees, listen to their stories, understand more about them, and collaborate with them. And that was really powerful. In Nairobi last year with UN Women, I taught 114 women, mainly through WhatsApp. I was teaching them how to make masks, and then they were given work to make masks. So between them, they made 57,000 masks. It was a UN sponsored project, and then those masks were distributed in Nairobi. I also taught them fashion business, and it was interesting because I do a lot of training around branding for designers. Now, branding for tailors was more about, what does your sign look like in the market? How do you arrange your clothes? How do you photograph your clothes? And it was very practical, broken down to the kind of environment they work in. And it was from 6 disadvantaged neighborhoods in Nairobi. I also did a similar program with Kampala, again through WhatsApp, in both Swahili and in English, as we did in Nairobi. And that was host communities and refugees in Kampala. So I think the needs are immense, and my fashion skills as well as my business skills, what I've learned across the way, and maybe that ability to connect with all kinds of people, because I'm equally comfortable talking to a tailor as I am talking to a designer. I really don't have an issue. And then sometimes I find myself in settings where I'm also teaching people who are illiterate. And that, I mean, you know, you just adapt, and it's still very workable. But I feel sometimes training programs cut out people who are illiterate, for example, because they feel, oh no, they can't read and write, they must be stupid. Whereas it's just because they haven't had opportunities to access education. And as a teacher, you just find a different way of teaching. And it's perfectly possible within the fashion medium to learn regardless of whether you can read and write. But in the case of Kenya, we don't have a lot of that. Most people have gone to school, and most people are able to, you know, follow written material without too much difficulty. But I find the skills I've learned in teaching people who can't read and write are very useful when I teach anybody, because at the end of the day, it's about engaging that person. It's about connecting with their energy. It's about body language. It's about being entertaining while you teach. It's not about a formal classic, sit in a classroom and listen to a teacher all day. I am very interested in peer learning. I feel that I'm learning as much from the class as people are learning from me. You know, we all learn from each other. And so I see myself more as a facilitator, as a channel for information exchange. I think that would be a better way of looking at it.
Yeah, you're actually talking about exchange of knowledge and intercultural communication, because it doesn't have to necessarily be verbal, like you say. It's about skills, it's about connection. And as we are also discussing since the beginning of our conversation, the connection is what comes from the heart. It comes from here, the center. And then you're able to understand the other person, because you are able to get heart by heart into the needs of whatever you are trying to present to them or receive from them. And talk to us about your experience in Sudan. That is one of the most recent ones.
It was amazing. I have always wanted to go to Khartoum. I've had lots of Sudanese artist friends in Nairobi, and I've always been fascinated wished to visit. So finally it happened, and I went with my friend Hebert, and together we taught a group of about 25 designers. We were teaching them, what were we teaching them? The usual kind of branding, finding yourself within your brand, but then also practical training around pattern cutting, around designing a collection as opposed to a series of individual outfits. And as usual, we learned as much as we taught because people are very generous, very kind, and they have a lot to share. They've got a very rich culture. And I was lucky to meet a number of artists. So we were teaching fashion designers who were artists, and then also I met others, some very well-known painters. And it was just very interesting conversations from the minute we landed. And a wonderful hostess, Randa, who made sure that we were well taken care of. So, I mean, I'm looking forward to going back. We'll be going back again next year. We'll do a fashion show. Right now, we're again tutoring on WhatsApp with people sending us mood boards for their collections and guiding them through it. But they really are a country of artists. I mean, that everybody can sketch, that everybody can work with colors, like they're really, really strong at it. And we've taught in a number of different countries, but we've never seen that level of general artistry across the board. When it comes to execution of making clothes and things, that's now got a few problem areas. But the actual art part, the drawing part, the visuals, yeah, really blew me away. And the city was very interesting as well. You know, we had the chance to move around Omdurman, Khartoum North, Khartoum South, the Nile, eat different kinds of food, meet different people, go to a wedding. You know, you name it, we managed to do it. And it was just fascinating. And then wherever you went, even in the restaurants, you know, a lot of the waiting staff had been through university, because sadly they have quite a lot of unemployment right now. But as a customer, what that meant is you're constantly having an interesting conversation, because people want to talk about their culture, and they also want to connect to other countries because they've been shut off for quite a long time. And sadly, this thing of the embargo being lifted on a practical level, day to day, it's still in place. Like if you want to Google certain things, certain websites won't come up. You can't make international payments using an international card. You can't withdraw from the ATM, things like that, just because of the effect of the US embargo that, you know, it's still on a day-to-day basis. There's so many things that are still not resolved even after the change of government. So I think it was good to just be aware of, you know, how hard people have to struggle to do what they need to do, and understand the effects that some of these political decisions have on ordinary people, and, you know, how it really makes their life extremely difficult. Becomes difficult to understand why those sort of things just stay there. You know, it doesn't make sense to me. So yeah, it was a learning experience with everything as usual.
And it's very deep, and it's also very empowering. You also have run for several years FAFA. There is also an intercultural platform, and you are the creator of KikoRomeo. Please talk to us about those specific initiatives, projects in your life.
I mean, KikoRomeo came first, and that was working in development, or rather in emergency, because MSF is about emergencies, but realizing that the emergencies we were handling wouldn't be emergencies if there was development. So it was like people were forced into a crisis because there was no safety net of development in their regions. So that was what made me set up KikoRomeo, because I wanted to create jobs and create income and supplementary income for women in rural areas, particularly women, because at the time when I was doing that, early 90s, you know, they didn't have access to cash, and kids still needed to go to school, they needed uniforms, and if the women had money, that's what they prioritized. So that was the founding principle of KikoRomeo, that and the lack of confidence a lot of Kenyans had in wearing traditional clothing that had a traditional African reference, should I say. So modern clothing that you could wear to the office, but that had something that said, I'm from Africa. So that was the KikoRomeo brand. And then FAFA, Festival of African Fashion Arts, was set up in 2008 when Kenya had very severe political violence, and everybody was worried about it descending into, complete chaos. And I realized that I'd become so well known with KikoRomeo. I was a public figure, and I didn't feel as a public figure that I wanted to just stay quiet. So, I was quite involved in whatever peace initiatives I could find. And then I was challenged by Al Fadi to set up an event with fashion. And his suggestion was really interesting because he said the media love violence, but they also love glamour. And the thing that gives glamour is fashion. So if you put a beautiful girl on a runway wearing something amazing, the media are definitely going to photograph it, and it's definitely going to be featured. And you realize so much of like a country's hope and how you turn things around is like for the, common people to have hope. And by putting out pictures, beautiful pictures, glamorous pictures, people have hope. They don't feel like they're just in this cycle of violence and there's nothing they can do about it. And that's immensely empowering. As soon as I started talking about it, I had so many people wanting to join me in making this event happen. It was just like a roller coaster, like it really became such a power for good. And it was as much about everybody starting to feel better and feeling they could do something to stop this descent. So that's how FAFA started. We had initially we called the shows Fashion for Peace, and then over time, we changed that because we did have peace, and so we just called it FAFA. But the whole point was to bring people together around something beautiful, to create an energy around something positive, uplifting, and inspire people to be creative and do good and be a good neighbor, shall I say, reach out, bridge that gap, whatever that gap might be, and make an effort to understand each other. And unity and diversity was our slogan, as it is yours. Because for me, I think what you referred to, the eclectic background, I grew up in an area of Scotland that was very close to Northern Ireland. And Northern Ireland in the 60s, 70s had very serious political problems. And we had a lot of, I would call them refugees, but, we had a lot of people who chose to move to Scotland because, there was really a lot of violence in Northern Ireland at the time. And I think I was always conscious of that just chance that had I been born 30 miles west, I would have been in Northern Ireland. Whereas where I was born in Scotland, and it was peaceful. And it just makes you very conscious that it seems almost chance that you're born here or you're born there, but at the end of the day, the values that people hold dear are the same. And it's only about, just realizing that the person over there isn't different from you. They may have a cultural casing that's different, but the real values that person has, they're the same. Everybody wants the same things for their kids. They want the same things for themselves, and nobody really benefits from being at war. So yeah, I think FAFA was just one of those things that was a calling for me, and it's like a really strong thing. And I just happened to be there at that time, and that was just something I had to do. I think sometimes we've got messages that we just have to follow through on. We don't know where they come from or why, but we don't even think about it. We're just in a situation where we know that's what we have to do, and we do it. So that's what FAFA was for me.
And let's show to our public a short video that you have talking about Kiko Romeo. Okay, let's go. In sound here, sound share here.
Romeo has a huge design heritage. We've been in business here for 20 years. We look at traditional arts and crafts, we incorporate them in the clothing, and we continue to work with the same groups we did when we started. And I think that's very rich because we've seen them grow, we've seen their families grow. It's a very close collaboration. And now we're doing a more cutting-edge menswear line. KikoRomeo means Adam's apple. I started the brand as a menswear brand, but at the time, in '96, there weren't many funky Kenyan men who wanted something interesting in fashion. So I had to go into women's wear. I like women's wear. I love doing couture made to measure, but I have a passion for menswear. I enjoy male company. I love making clothes for them. And I hope that I'm bringing something different to the table. I don't want to just be a suitwear designer. I like doing suits, but I feel there are many other things that men need clothes for. So mine is to now bring in other products which just create an interesting lifestyle for a man.
Perfect. So this was a very, very short teaser of what Kiko Romeo is all about. You can also Google Kiko Romeo together and McCreath to also know more about her initiatives and her passion for humanity, art, and nature. And Anne, we all already reached the 30 minutes of our conversation, and we will be very happy if you can send a message to the new generations and to the society, please.
Can you stop recording? Yeah, so I think you need to look inwards to find who you are and what you're really about. And I think in creative industries, there's an awful lot of looking at what someone else is doing. We're told to who our competitors are. I think if you're a creative, you don't have real competitors. If you tap into yourself and your inner creativity, if you look at your core values about the things that make you happy, the things you're good at, and you find that sweet spot and you just do that, you'll find you're unique from anybody else on the planet. Nobody, like even in the same family with the same parents, us and our brothers and sisters were not the same. So find that thing that's special about you, that unique combination, and turn that into your driving force in whatever you do in the creative world. And then that gives you the chance to celebrate other people without feeling threatened by them, because you know that yours is different and you're going to attract people because you're different. Then you can support everybody else.
And let me send you a virtual hug, and I hope to be able to give you a real one very soon. You know, I love you and sending you all the best wishes and your projects and your life and your new journey and your connection with the sea that is giving you so much peace and so much happiness. Yeah. So keep shining, and musical kisses, and see you soon. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye-bye.